Happy Friday, everybody. It's Chief Meteorologist Brad Petovich. Welcome into Live Weather Impact. We're now starting the weekend, the first full weekend of June, and summer is here. Some people always think, Memorial Day weekend's kind of the unofficial start of summer. And it is, but this is really, June 1st is the official beginning. So this is our full first weekend, really, of the summer season, and it's going to feel like it. We look outside tonight, another day of not a thunderstorm to be found, which is a rare setup. The drought is definitely building back in when we have all these dry conditions. So you can see we've got a lot of cloud cover moving in now, mainly in the mid and high levels. That is starting to bring in some filtered sunshine as we go into the evening hours, but that high pressure is still overhead, so it's still squashing any chance for thunderstorm development. It's also keeping us very toasty. It's also allowing for poor air quality out there. As we take a look at the wider view, you can see off to the west, that's where all the activity is. We're kind of all rotating around this big ridge of high pressure, which is parked over the southeast. Until that shifts over the water out east into the Atlantic, we're going to continue to be pretty hot and dry. It's also leading to the poor air quality. Air quality alerts were in effect today for most of the metro areas, and this is all about car travel because the car pollution, the exhaust coming from your car, two-cycle engines, mowers, weed eaters, backpack blowers, all that combines with sunlight and no mixing of the air, and you get ground level ozone. So that's why we saw that today. We could see it this weekend, but usually the weekends it goes down. There's just less cars on the road. There's less travel. So the morning and evening commutes really accelerate this. Dew points still very comfortable if you're going uptown, Taste of Charlotte, Banana Ball in town. There's a lot going on outside right now, and temperatures are very pleasant for this time of the year. Mid-80s and no humidity. Honestly, you could not ask for a better kind of setup for this time of year. Let's look at the almanac today. The high temperature did manage to sneak up to 87 after the fourth morning in a row in the 50s, 59 this morning. Look at the rainfall, 0. For the year, we're still almost 6 inches behind, so we got a long ways to go there. Sunset tonight, though, remember, 8:35 p.m. We've got a ways to go before the latest sunsets of the year coming up at the end of the month, 8:42. Man, it's long daylight hours. Now, tonight, not as cool, but still very comfortable. Low, maybe mid-60s with low humidity, should feel pretty good. Tomorrow looks a lot like today, probably a mix of sun and clouds, and back up close to 90 degrees. Not humid yet. The humidity starts to raise its head on Sunday. That's when we start to see the flow start to come more from the Gulf and the Atlantic. So it's going to get sticky on Sunday, and that's kind of reflected in our dew point trend. Tomorrow, still very tolerable dew points in the 50s. Sunday, we're in the 60s, and that's humid air. That humid air stays with us. So once it gets here, might be locked in for the rest of the summer. Though in a drought, there's one thing about a drought that can be beneficial. It's usually pretty dry, and sometimes you get low dew points and cool mornings and really hot afternoons. That's kind of the desert type climate setting up. But rainfall chances, speaking of drought, I think we're going to see a reversal of some of our gains the last couple of weeks just because it's so hot and dry for the last week, and it's going to stay that way really into next week. So Thursday's drought monitor probably not going to be reflective of any improvement, maybe even reversals, because we're pulling so much moisture out of the crops, the vegetation, the ground. And with rainfall this week probably staying less than a half an inch, maybe less than a quarter inch, that'll actually be a deficit for the week. Now the mountains, the one exception, there likely will be ridge-top thunderstorms every day, so the mountains might end up getting some rain out of this. Now the jet stream pattern is going to show we've got a pretty big ridge building over the southeast. This is kind of a heat dome that's going to camp out over the eastern half of the country. This should keep temperatures not only hot, but start to get really humid, especially by this time next week. A week from today when we're doing this show, we're likely going to be talking about mid-90s and probably dew points close to 70. So the air you can wear is going to make a big-time comeback, and it's going to get super sticky around here, and that would allow for more pop-up storms, but that's at least a week away. Skeeter meter, just a heads up, if you're heading outside, I know it's my yard, they've been brutal. We use mosquito buckets, you try all the different techniques, do what you can. Mosquitoes, they breed rapidly after heavy rain. A week out, they usually have a big crop of them start hatching. The other thing is they like calm winds, so this high pressure is actually very favorable for them. It keeps them very active. They're weak flyers. That's why a fan on your back porch can really help you because just the wind alone keeps them away. So we're in the yuck range. That's the highest level, and this is kind of like the perfect mosquito setup. We had some heavy rain. it dried out, and now we have light winds and warm temperatures. So unfortunately for backyard activities, it's going to be pretty itchy with those mosquitoes. So use the DEET load up if you had the kids out there over the weekend. Speaking of the weekend, temperatures both days hovering near 90, probably a few more clouds on Sunday, and definitely more humid. So I think Sunday deceiving. It looks nice, right? But it's likely going to be pretty sticky because we're going to have increased dew points. Here's a look at your Jerry Hump Supercenter 7-day forecast. Again, I think 3 days hovering near 90. Tuesday, some scattered showers and thunderstorms roll into the region. That will set the stage for some slightly cooler air just because of cloud cover. But then next week, you can see the 10-day forecast is going to show temperatures staying pretty hot and humid. I mean, we could see a stretch of mid-90s next week, and it's just not here. The whole state of North and South Carolina could see some really humid conditions by the end of the week into early next weekend. And the only good thing about that is it should allow for pop-up afternoon and evening thunderstorms to be kind of around, and I think that's going to help us out with some afternoon and evening storms. So while we always don't want to see hot, humid air, I was saying this earlier, the lower dew points are great for our comfort. They're not great for the drought because it keeps the rain chances low. It increases evaporation rates and really causes the drought to get worse. So as much as I hate to say this, I do want it to get more humid because at least that means the chance for pop-up showers and storms going into the weekend. And looking long range real quickly, excuse me, a frog in my throat. We do see warmer than average temperatures for most of the eastern half of the country through the middle of the month. And there are some signs that maybe we could see an increase in the afternoon, evening thunderstorm chances. So when we look at the 6 to 10 day rainfall outlook, it does show at least a 30% chance of above average rainfall, so maybe a glimmer of hope. So coming up, Tim Buckley is going to join me again. We'll go into the weekend, talk about everything we're getting ready for this weekend, all the topics of the day. I'm sure we'll break into some other things, probably talking more bugs. That's coming up after the break, so stick around.
Weather Impact Live with Brad Panovich is sponsored by Moisture Lock, crawl space, basement, and foundation repair experts serving the Carolinas since 1988.
Tired of all this rain? Does your yard look like a swamp after it rains? Hi, I'm Greg Doggett with Moisture Lock, Charlotte's premier waterproofing and foundation repair company. The longer water sits, the softer soil will become. This can cause foundation issues. If you're having drainage issues, contact Moisture Lock. We'll get the water away from your home and out of your yard.
Moisture Lock, stabilize, enhance, protect.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Happy Friday again. Tim Buckley joins me from WFMY. And Tim, going into the weekend, and really was a rare treat this week. We had and I'd love to see some rain, but it was a rare summer week, really, where we had temperatures that were very mild, dew points low. The mornings, 4 straight mornings here in Charlotte in the 50s, almost unheard of in the summer. It really was a nice week, but it looks like summer is literally knocking on the door as we go into this weekend weather-wise.
I think so too, bro. We were joking about, it's a dry heat, right?
Yeah.
Not something we're ever really able to say often around here, but
Yeah.
We've been able to enjoy it now, and it's not all that hot outside.
No.
Temperatures upper 80s, low 90s, more comfortable than you usually would expect, and it stays in check a bit for the weekend.
Yeah.
But I do think, like you said, especially heading into next week, that's when that stickiness is finally going to come for us, and with it, maybe you get a couple pop-up showers chances. But part of the problem with this drought is, the low humidity and the drought, I think, have gone hand in hand, and that's kind of what we're seeing play out yet again.
Yeah, it is a catch-22. I would say the low humidity is great for our comfort, but you kind of want it humid to get pop-up storms, and it's a double-edged sword. Not only does it not produce storms, Tim, but it also has these really high evaporation rates. This is really drying things out quicker than it normally would when it's muggy. So all that beneficial rain we had the last 2 weeks, for most folks, I know you guys didn't get as much as us, but whatever moisture you did get is probably getting sapped out of the ground and the vegetation real quickly right now.
It really is, and I had a viewer reach out to me today. She was peeved, let's say. Some of her friends and neighbors, she said they keep watering at the wrong time.
Oh,
and I said, well,
yes.
tell me more about it. And she said they're watering in the middle of the day.
Ooh.
And unlike Charlotte, we don't have these water restrictions right now, so we're not going to get a ticket or anything. But truly, this is not effective or efficient for use of water right now, because like you said, Brad, that the evaporation rate is so high, the sunshine is so strong in June, it's just not the best time of the day to do it.
Yeah, by most estimates in this type of weather, you could lose 60-70% of that water from a sprinkler to evaporation in the middle of the day. Because you think about it, when you sprinkle, especially a sprinkler, the water shoots in the air, so it's completely surrounded by this dry air. It's completely impacted by sunlight. And it's probably the most inefficient way to water in the middle of the day. That's why drip irrigation is allowed here, because it's more direct. And if you are going to do those sprinklers, the mornings and evenings when evaporation rates are lowest are the most efficient. So, yeah, it really is. It doesn't make a lot of sense to do it in the middle of the day. I just feel like you're throwing money down the drain, literally, when you do that. Let's talk a little bit about the weekend forecast, because I know you've got some pretty hot temperatures. But as you mentioned, I actually agree with you. I think tomorrow, I'm going 90, but I think it's a dry heat tomorrow. We got dew points in the 50s. Sunday, I'm kind of curious. I think we might see the dew point try to creep up, but it's probably going to mix out a little bit. But I agree. I think Monday is when we'll start to really feel the humidity make a comeback. And once it develops next week, it looks like we might be locked into the hazy, hot, humid pattern for next week and into next weekend.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. And at one point, I had thought we might have a little chance of some rain on Sunday afternoon, but I'm kind of tempted to just totally get rid of that.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like it's going to materialize very well. If anything, maybe up in Virginia. But it's another one of these backdoor cold fronts that it's just not very good at bringing rain our way. But there's the trend, the air you can wear, that 70 threshold, probably the middle of the week, if not toward the end of the week. It's been fun while it lasted. There's only so much avoiding it.
Yeah.
You're going to get back to it eventually.
I'm okay with it.
It's supposed to be in North Carolina.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. It's June, right? It's like, I'm brutally honest with people. I like spring weather. I like fall weather. I like the dry, kind of mild weather. But, in the summer, it's supposed to be hot and humid. So I'm not opposed to it. I'm more opposed to it when it's not supposed to be here, like in March and April. That's when I don't want to have the hot humid. In June, July, and August, I'm like, it's okay. I'm at the pool, lake. It's supposed to be that way,
Absolutely. Brad, we have some visitors to Greensboro right now. I'm not sure if you're aware. We've got the Norwegian World Cup team. They're stationed here this week and through parts of the tournament. So they've got a little training facility going on. Germany's actually in Wake Forest over in Winston. I think you got Scotland down there in Charlotte. We were talking to some of the Norway folks and giving them like a little primer on what you can expect weather-wise compared to Oslo. And I was like, this is actually way better than you should expect because our humidity's low.
Yeah.
Just wait until next week. It's going to be a little bit different for those players that are doing some training. But talk about a climate shift going from Scandinavia to North Carolina in the summertime.
Yeah, and that's going to be a big story for the summer with the World Cup because it's in North America, so the games are in the U.S., Canada, and Mexico in July. They could not have picked a hotter, more humid time of year to play these games. And in Norway, actually, I think Norway is probably one of the favorite teams. I actually like Norway and Spain probably to be in the final. So that's kind of cool. I was working with some folks from Norway. It's a great culture over there. So it's kind of cool that they're in North Carolina training. But yeah, hopefully they get acclimated to this because they're going to be playing games in this, and that'll be a story I think going into next weekend when the first games start. This hot, humid weather for these World Cup games could be pretty brutal. Let's start with something local because this is something I know you talked a little bit about, and we talked about I think earlier in the week. We had another couple houses collapse in the Outer Banks, Tim. We had this kind of low pressure system off the coast. It was kind of a weird low pressure. I'm going to try to bring up my radar and satellite here, but we had this it was like a weird kind of like non-tropical low, but that combined with the astronomical high tides off the coast did produce some pretty rough surf out there, and we had another house collapse. And we talked to our good friend Sam Walker today on the Outer Banks, and he was it was pretty interesting conversation with our live weather, our live news impact team, talking about they lost some houses, but he was saying that some parts of the Outer Banks, believe it or not, are actually starting to see some sand redeposited. And he was really interesting talking about the Outer Banks are basically sandbars. There's some areas where it's eroding, but there's other areas where it's actually starting to build up a little bit, Tim.
That's great. And sometimes the process is not entirely predictable. You can get changes just based on the currents shifting around. I know there's a lot of theories floating around about why things have changed in Buxton so much, which is the area that we're seeing a lot of activity now. It always used to be, if you talked about the homes collapsing, it was always about Rodanthe. And it still is. But Buxton has been just a swarm of activity, and it's all been since September. So well over a dozen homes since just September have fallen, basically the whole front row in a neighborhood in the Buxton area. So a lot of theories about that. But when you're taking sand away, sometimes it can get deposited elsewhere. So that's interesting that he's mentioning that. That can be the case.
Yeah, and it's somewhat controversial because, as you know, like in the Outer Banks, it's kind of a rare area. Like they don't do a lot of renourishment. They don't do jetties and other things because they want it to happen naturally, Tim, because, in other beaches further south in North Carolina and even South Carolina, they put, a jetty out, and it really influences who sees sand. It could cause erosion in one area and deposit sand other places. So it is an interesting phenomenon out there. I think it's what makes the Outer Banks so unique. It also makes it very vulnerable, is that they try to leave things to nature. And unfortunately, Mother Nature wants to reclaim part of the Outer Banks. And a lot of these houses, which I will tell too, people not from here don't understand. They're like, why did they build so close to the water? And you realize, well, that house was built 20, 30 years ago when it was like third or fourth row. And now it's on the beach, which is just, it's crazy when you see some of those images from the satellite images showing where the shoreline is now just like 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's totally different, and I made a little map about this. I can pop it up full screen if you guys want to take it. But there are two areas in the Outer Banks that we've been talking about. There's your Rodanthe spot, and then there's down in Buxton. So you can see. I'm going to zoom into the Buxton part. This is a spot that wasn't really an issue a little bit ago, and a lot of the locals are blaming. They have a couple jetties down here. You see these? So this is pretty much where they used to have the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse. So they call it Old Lighthouse Beach. Well, they relocated that sucker down here. They knew that there were some issues, and they built these jetties. Well, there's talk that a lot of these have been damaged, and now the Army Corps is going to go and try and repair them, because the thought is that all of these homes, every one of these dots is one that's fallen in. There's concern that maybe that was the issue that's changed the currents around, and you can just see all of these are gone since September, which is crazy.
Wow.
And it is a rapid rate. And when we talked, you remember, Brad, when we talked to Sam last year, he said that there was some that were rented weeks before.
Right before they
then
collapsed.
They were in the water.
Yep. Yeah, and that's
This is
why.
the Rodanthe spot.
Yeah, the Rodanthe spot's kind of the famous spot because that's the one I think you can go see almost a bunch of houses always getting impacted by waves and water.
Yep.
But what's interesting there is, as you mentioned, it's like those being rented the week before they collapse. Part of the reason those houses still rent is that they're so valuable. They spend a lot of money to move those houses inland, right? Like a couple blocks. That's super expensive. But the property values in those homes are worth so much that it's actually worth the cost to move it because you can recoup some of that money. And having friends that have beach houses in other parts of the Carolinas, it's the mortgage sometimes is the least of your expenses, Tim. Your insurance could end up being more monthly than your mortgage in many cases, and by a lot, not just a little, because of that erosion and storms.
It can be so expensive to move them, and sometimes, from what I understand, I don't own a beach house, sometimes they might not give you the insurance money until it falls in.
Yeah.
So that's why some of these people are just letting it fall in, which is crazy to think about. And then our poor National Park Service, they got to get out there and clean up all this stuff, close the beaches. And they were posting they have this special equipment, which to me, this looks like what you see in California when they kind of get up on the beach and pick up all the kelp. They're doing that to scrape up all like the little house debris that's been small enough to get through the cracks.
Yeah, they always put those warnings out for people because there's all kinds of nails and other sharp items, and people are going to try to recreate in that water. So it is a big problem, and it won't be the last time we talk about this, Tim. I think, this is just going to be an ongoing issue. And, Highway 12 is another hot button item out there because everyone's like, why do we spend so much money cleaning it and fixing it? People realize that the Outer Banks are such a economic boom for this state that those costs I know seem high. It is worth it when you look at the revenue that area takes in, because it's one of my favorite parts of North Carolina because it's just so unique. I like getting away from people. And so one of the nice things about the Outer Banks, it is a rare beach area where there's not a lot of people, there's not a lot of big buildings and hotels.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, to me, it's like going to the mountains, but it's at the beach because there's a lot of open space and freedom without all the crowds.
It's funny you say that, Brad, because the Outer Banks is not somewhere that I've gone very often. It's really far away. It's a longer drive. All of those things. One of the times I went there, though, was kind of the first trip I took during COVID. And what were you trying to do during COVID? Get away from people. and that's what I did. It was one of those first months that you were allowed to do that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And just driving Highway 12, they have all these little parking spots, kind of like on the Blue Ridge Parkway. You can just pull off. And I found a little spot to pull off, brought the chair out on the beach. There was just the two of us. There was no one else for miles. You couldn't see anybody. That was a really cool experience. So it is a place to kind of preserve and treasure and enjoy.
Yeah, so it's, if you ever wonder why they spend so much money keeping it the way they do, it's because people love it out there. It is, and it does feel like another world out there. It almost feels like you're in New England or somewhere like that. It doesn't really feel like North Carolina in some instances because it's just such a unique culture. And, and if you're looking for locals, Hatteras is like the place to go. That's where all the locals live, Hatteras Island. There's people that live out there, that's where they live. And those are the diehards. Those are the ones that stay through all the storms. Another thing I want to talk about, we talked about yesterday, Tim, and I'm going to try to bring it up if I can. But last night we had another big mayfly hatch down here in the Charlotte area. And this one was pretty wild. We had a big hatch on Lake Wylie, the South Fork of the Catawba River, Mountain Island Lake. I even saw some of the coves in Lake Norman. And once again, High Rock Lake saw a pretty good batch up there. And it spawned a lot of great questions from some of my viewers, because first of all, people think mayflies, they think it has to be in May, Tim. And May is kind of like the middle of their season, but it can be April, May, or June. And for people that don't know what mayflies are, they're essentially, if you've ever gone fishing or seen fly fishing, it's the lure that they make is basically a mayfly. These things only live for 24, 36 hours, so they swarm, they mate, they lay new eggs, and they're done. But at night around sunset, it is crazy, Tim, to see these show up on radar. They're very vivid, and I think tonight will be another night they're going to show up quite a bit.
What a life. I mean, geez, like a crazy life cycle that they have. Is there a reason that they're hatching around sunset, or is that just when the radar is more able to kind of detect them because of the way the radar works?
That tends to be when they kind of get more active and they hatch. It's always around sunset, and they get real active that time of the night. I don't know if it's for self-defense, like there's less birds to hunt them, but the fish love it. Like you talk to any fisherman, when they see a hatch like this is when the fish are biting in their surface as well. The other thing is that I think you're right. I think a little bit this time of year, there's a little bit more of an inversion around that time, so the radar tends to pick them up a little bit better. But it really has to do with the water temperature. The reason it's this time of the year, the water temperature reaches that critical point where they begin to hatch. And again, it's not just here, Tim. You could see these on the Great Lakes. Any body of water, you're going to see these just about anywhere. So I'll be interested tonight, check the radar for a couple different locations. They like the coves. They like the rivers more so than big lakes, but they're near the shore. And I got a bunch of pictures last night, and people are like, yep, I can confirm it. And I saw swarms of them at gas stations up near Lexington. Someone sent me the truck stop for High Rock Lake near Lexington. And they were everywhere. They were like all over the place. And obviously our colleague, James Scott, had them all over his car. He's probably still getting those out of the radiator. Those things are, they're hard to get out when they stick to everything. But yeah, that could be another night tonight where we see a bunch of those. So just a heads up for anybody around the area waterways around sunset, which is 8:35. You might see a ton of those tonight. Speaking of that, Tim, that reminds me, we have such late sunsets now. I saw your graphic earlier. It's pretty wild. Like last night, there was a chance for the Northern Lights, and it really kind of fizzled completely. But one of the reasons I didn't think it was going to be very possible, we get astronomical twilight till like 10:20 at night. I mean, I took a picture of Venus and Jupiter last night at 10 o'clock. I could still see the sun on the horizon a little bit, the twilight. It just goes to show you, these days are so long right now.
I feel for folks that have young kids and they're trying to get into bed and all that stuff. But I love this time of year. I like when those days are really long.
Yeah.
I'm at work anyway, but it's just nice. You kind of have a different feel. You go outside, it's still 80 degrees, 70 degrees, and to have it still be kind of that twilight through the evening is really pleasant. But a lot of folks don't realize June is the brightest month. Even in July, you're starting to shorten up a little bit, and you really start to notice it come August.
Yeah, so once again tonight, if you're out and about and you look in the western sky, you're going to see Jupiter and Venus pretty close together. Our sunset here, Tim, is 8:35. I guess your guys is probably a little bit earlier by a couple minutes.
8:33.
Yeah, so a couple minutes. And by the way, the latest sunset of the year for Charlotte isn't until the end of the month. It's after the solstice. It's 8:42 p.m. So we still got plenty of these long evenings ahead, Tim.
Oh, yeah. Enjoy it while it lasts. It goes pretty fast.
All right, everybody. Have a great weekend. A lot of outdoor activities this weekend. Stay cool out there. Stay hydrated. We'll see you back here on Monday.